Hi, it's Nikki Howard here, and today I'm going to be talking about happiness. And this kind of came into mind because somebody in my group on Facebook, Art of the Soul, said that she would really like to be happy like me. And when you have something that's just so part of you that you don't realize that other people may not be like that or have that or know how to be like that. And a few years ago, I became known as Madam Positive, and somebody from junior school that I knew when I was a little kid said, "You're always a ray of sunshine. You're always so happy." And I didn't realize, especially as a child, that was, that was something that other people didn't have. I thought all children were happy. So I thought it was a really good subject to talk about because there's so much scope about it, about, or just be happy or be positive, what makes you happy, all these type of things. But to really stop and think about what is happiness is quite a subject. So yeah, I mean, if I ask you the question, okay, what makes you happy? And people will say like, oh, being with family or painting or being in the garden. But to me, these are moments of instant happiness that depends on something on the outside that can change. If suddenly we can't, go out in the garden or we can't meet our friends and family, like for example, during lockdown, the classic thing, we couldn't be with friends and family, or we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that. Then what happens to happiness? That then becomes dependent on something. And so that there's really two types of happiness. There is this exterior happiness that depends on what we're doing in that moment, that brings us that joy of like, oh yeah, this is amazing. But true happiness is an inside job. And yes, I think obviously I've always been that way. Happiness is it's a natural state of being, like love and like joy. It's our natural way to be. That's how we were born. We were born happy in those moments of being born and as babies, there's that general happiness. But then there's lots of stuff that gets put on top of happiness, like loads of dust that gets put on top that dims it down. Things like our beliefs and our fears and traumas and pain, all that kind of starts dimming it like the dimmer switch. So for me, that happiness, that true happiness is, I see it as sorry, my cat's chasing butterflies outside. Um, I see it as almost like a reference point, a go-to point that we always return to. It's a set point of whatever's happening on the outside world. I can find this bit within me. And I almost connect it to an inner peace and an inner faith. And I think that above everything else is really more and more what I think my happiness is, that it's faith that everything's going to work out, faith that whatever's happening is for my highest good. Trusting the path. And that there's so much I think comes into that inner happiness, gratitude, there's trust, faith, letting go, looking for where we want to go, looking for the positive. There's so much in it that allows me to have that set point of just being in joy. And again, positive. I was called Madame Positive. And it's not about positive thinking, it's about positive feeling and positive being. If we think positive, like, okay, I think positive, I've got to do this. Like, that is coming from the head and it's not really felt in the heart. And it's something we really have to drop into the heart to. If we don't feel that positive, we can drop into our heart and ask, okay, where's the positive in this situation? And then feel into that. It's almost like looking in the dark and fit, okay, where's a light switch? Okay, the light switch is there. I can move it. That is a positive bit. It's just something to hold into and feel it. It's such a, it is such a big subject, and whichever way we go, there's a whole other video that could be done on it. Um, Having that absolute trust. Yes, I still have moments where I don't trust that. Yes, worry still comes up, even if I've worked on my worry and my fear that it's not an automatic trigger. It will still go there occasionally. It's normal. I'm a human. I will have my down moments. I'm a human. I can't be up there all the time. And if I was, one, that there's something wrong, that I'm not being honest with myself. And two, you cannot have the highs without the lows. And at the moments that I'm in a low, it's probably for a day, a couple of days. And it's because I'm working through things, I'm processing, and then up I come again. And so I keep getting the voice in my head, do a course on this, do a course on this. And I'm actually feeling it. So I think this could be a good thing to do, to set up a course on, a mini course. So yeah, I mean, gratitude. It's always been thankful for what's around you, for really appreciating this moment. I've done a whole video on that about gratitude and why that's important and how we can do it. The letting go and the trust and this faith that there's always like a silver lining, if you like. Just have a drink of water. My throat went so dry. Just letting go and having this inner faith that everything is going to be fine. Just one example. I had a car, a Peugeot 206, and little by little, it was getting worse and worse. I knew there was going to be loads of stuff to be done on it. The clutch needed redoing. I knew the distributor needed changing. That there was all sorts. It was getting one of these old things with all these problems. Thinking, God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to be able to buy a new car? To buy a new car, and it wasn't new. It would have been, a second-hand one. But I still didn't have the resources to buy one to get me back up to where I could be with a car. And I was driving home one day, and for some reason, which is something I never do, is leave my indicator on. And so I had my indicator on apparently turning right, but I wasn't. I was going straight on. This woman coming from the right presumed that I was going to turn and started to pull out, luckily not a high speed. And so she knocked me, and we pulled over on the side of the road, did all the paperwork as you do in France. And it wasn't a bad accident. And I thought, why have I had this accident? Why has this happened? That's something I never do, is leave my indicator on. And especially, of turning around a corner, knowing it's just like, I just don't do it. Her car had no damage at all. My car had the bonnet kind of like crumpled up a bit. I thought, maybe be able to change the bonnet on the insurance. But all the time I was there filling out the paperwork, I thought, there's a bigger plan going on here. There's something else in this for me. I don't know what it is right now, but I know this accident happened on purpose. And I contacted the insurance. They valued it and says, I'm sorry, the car, it's more expensive to repair because basically it knocked the whole car out of joint slightly. And so everything would have needed replacing. Even if it didn't look like that, that was the report that came back. So we can't repair it. We'll give you the money. We'll refund you the money that we can value the car at. Oh, brilliant. And that then became a down payment for a lease car that I had for 3 years, but in actual fact was a car I'd always wanted to have, a Renault Clio, which for many of you out there thinking, well, that's just a boring car. But for me, it wasn't. It's one I'd have on my vision board because I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. I love to drive it. It was a good car and a good car in France. And there, lo and behold, was a possibility of having a new car, was having a lease car. And it worked out absolutely perfect. Everything with the lease car, or the maintenance is paid. It just suited me down to the ground. And thankfully, I had that accident with the car. I didn't know that at the time how that was going to turn out. I just had to trust. And it's like when you're walking through the fog, our life is a fog, really, that you only really know the next step. You know that this path is taking you somewhere. You don't know where, but you know there's going to be a destination there, but you cannot see where. And so, like just when you walk in the fog, every step you take becomes that little bit clearer. You see that next step ahead. And so for me, that faith is knowing that I'm just having to follow these steps, that the universe has got my back, that I know the way forwards and I will be shown it. And if it's not, if I'm taking the wrong way, if I'm not listening, the universe is going to damn well nudge me to get me back on track. So that's one way. And I also talked about in a video, I think, about letting go, how the universe had told me to let go of the handlebars when I was going through a difficult moment and just to pedal. And that really helped me as well, because it helped me just to keep moving forward, knowing that the universe was there controlling the handlebars, and I just had to put my joy and my energy into whatever I was doing. And that there is always a good and a bad, well, not so much a good and a bad in a situation, but probably it's the wrong way or the right way, whichever you want to look at it. There's always a way forwards. There's always a solution. There's always something for us in it. That everything, absolutely everything happens for us. And once we begin to feel that, we're no longer the victim of thinking this is happening to me. It's kind of the case of, I always get this vision when I see people stressing out about situations or things not going their way. It's like if you're sat in a car, if you're in the driving seat, then you're driving along, you've got control. But if you're sitting in the passenger seat with nobody in the driving seat and it kind of freaks you out, or even with the bigger vision that I have, is that if you're getting pulled along, if you're hanging onto the back of the car, you're outside the car, there's a rope hanging off the bumper at the back, and you're being pulled along and hanging off it. All well and good if that road surface is flat and smooth, but if you're going over a bump, it's like, oh god, oh ouch, that hurts, oh that hurts, and you can feel that this stress that every time something is not happening their way, that you can feel that the stress in them of the jolt. But if we're in that car, and I'm actually going to change the vision of this, because if we trust that the divine is there driving that car and we're in the passenger seat, we can let go, and we know that they're driving us. But we're in that car, whether in the driving seat or the passenger seat, there's faith that we're moving forwards. If you're hanging onto a rope and you have absolutely no control, you can't see the road ahead, you don't know who's driving, if anybody's driving, you're feeling every single bump in the road. That creates so much fear and so much pain. But all we have to do is just to get in that driving seat, get inside that car, and realize that everything is happening for us. That, in many ways, we're creating situations, we're attracting situations because of the vibration or the deep subconscious feeling that we're having. And it's not what we're thinking up here, it's what we're not saying, what we're not believing we're seeing. Because what we're seeing up here is only 5% of what is really happening in our subconscious. Our subconscious has 95% that's running the show. That's a heck of a lot. So we're not always aware of what's really going on up here. We're only aware of the 5%. That 95% we start seeing in situations that keep coming to us, the same cycles that seem to be going along. The same people we're attracted, the same relationships we're having, the way people treat us. All this thing is all reflection of what we're not seeing. And this is why, it's so useful to be so aware of almost taking distance and seeing that what is happening on the outside is, in actual fact, just a reflection somewhere of what I cannot see within me. And we need that mirror. We need everything outside of us for us to understand what is going on within. It's a massive subject. It kind of takes me off in all sorts of tangents. But this is what I mean, that happiness is made up. It is such a big subject because what is happiness? It's coming back to this inner peace. It's knowing all this on the outside. And I remember just prior to lockdown, or maybe it was just the beginning of lockdown, I was given a vision of lots of people on either side making so much noise. And I was told, just put your head up and just keep moving forward. And there was like this gap between the people, like this corridor of nothingness, and just keep heading towards the light. And that's all I kept hearing. Put your head up, put your head down, and keep walking. And that's really what it is. It's ignoring everything else that's going on. Nothing else concerns me what's happening in the world. All I need to focus on is what I'm here to do, my mission. And that is so deep, so driven in me. I cannot step off the path. This is the way forwards. Everything else doesn't matter. And that really helps me as well to to find that happiness, that it doesn't matter what's happening on in the outside world. Yes, I'll get a blip here and there, but it doesn't really affect me deep down. And if something happens to me, then I just tend to let it go. Not in a big way, but if something is said to me or somebody's not nice to me, okay, there's a bit of a thing that goes on, but then I just release it. It's gone. I'm not letting that affect me anymore. And so it's really becoming conscious of how you feel and being aware of that, and then taking the steps to release everything that's stopping you from having that happiness, that inner happiness. And that is, as always, it comes back to emotion code, because that's releasing these trapped emotions that create these cycles. And emotion code taps into that which we cannot see. It helps us to understand why we do what we do, the cycles that we have. It helps us to see the emotions that we didn't know were there. It takes us back into that subconscious, that 95% subconscious. The same with the intuitive expression with the painting. So I would say to somebody really who is looking to have that happiness, start with gratitude. I say it on every video I started making now. Gratitude is your number one go-to. Start doing a gratitude diary. Use my PosiPods. Have a gratitude jar. Have a gratitude list up on your fridge. Bring that gratitude in, and not just saying it, writing it and seeing it. It's at that moment when it becomes a conscious thing. And even with my PosiPods, it's a physical thing. We're touching it, we're feeling it, we're bringing something into it rather than just thinking it. So I would, start with gratitude. Maybe start doing some type of inner work, whether that is with me, with what I offer, or with somebody else. Even regular Reiki sessions, things like that. Any energy healing can really help to start shifting that energy and bring your own awareness up. Start a diary and start writing down all your thoughts. There's something called the Artist's Way with Julie Cameron. And there is the morning pages that she does. And basically you write down 3 pages, if you can, of all the thoughts that are coming through your mind. The silly thoughts. Oh, it's raining outside. I haven't done the washing up. My feet are dirty. Oh, look at that bit over there. All these things that come up, and start writing them down. And I think it really brings awareness into thoughts we don't realize we're thinking. It's a big thing about happiness, I think, is being aware of how you think, because we live with ourselves. We've been with ourselves all our lives. We don't always realize how we're reacting, how we're thinking, how we're feeling, how we're being. Because, as I said at the beginning, I didn't realize that the way I feel is not always natural for everybody. Being happy is just my natural state of being. Another thought coming in about that, I'll leave that for a moment. So it's starting to be aware of how you think, and then learning to just that. Because if you change just your way of thinking by 1%, it can take you to a whole other realm. If you imagine you draw a line on a map from where you are, like from point A to point B, if you change that line by 1 degree, that line will take you, if you follow those lines out, it'll take you to a whole other place. So just by bringing in one practice a day, and I would say that is gratitude, that would start to change the way you feel and think and look at the world. Now, what just came up as well is that for some people, negative thinking is their natural way of being. And it's not natural. I wouldn't say this natural, you're born this way. I would say it's more natural because of everything that has happened to you that has created new neural pathways that has made it the automatic go-to to think more negatively, more pessimistically, whichever way you want to call it, of not seeing like the goodness in all. When we have a thought and we keep repeating that thought, and then the universe starts reflecting back towards that same thought, that then creates a stronger and stronger neural pathway in the brain. So in the end, that neural pathway will be triggered automatically, easily in every moment. So you've got the negative and the positive. Okay, you start off positive, and then all these things start happening to you. The way your family talks to you, the way you're reacted, the way your life is when you're a child, or even later in life, you know, it can start to build up. And very slowly, you start to build a more negative outlook because of all these thoughts that are going around. You know, these people keep saying this to me. Maybe I am useless. Maybe I am bad. Maybe I'm, you know, not good in this world. Oh, look, the universe is reflecting back to me. Oh, he's treating me like I'm no good. And then slowly but surely, we start having these more negative thoughts. And then we start creating a negative pathway, if you like. So then the natural reaction for your brain is to take this pathway. It can be changed. This is not fixed. The idea is then to create a new, more positive pathway, as I say, by gratitude, by starting being aware of your thoughts and slowly start to change that by 1 degree. And slowly you will start to build a new pathway and get back on the positive. Nothing is ever set in stone. And this is called neuroplasticity, that we can always change the way our brain reacts and works. It's never, ever set in stone. That was a lot of information. It's a big, big subject. But if there's one takeaway I would say is that you can change the way you think. And if you want to really get on the road to happiness, start with gratitude. That is a big one. If you want to know more about gratitude, hop over to my gratitude video. I'll pop it in the links in the description. And I'll see you again soon. Take care.